Hello friends, my name is Michelle-Fondin and I'm the author of The Wheel of Healing with Ayurveda, an easy guide to a healthy lifestyle. And today we're talking about what to eat for a Vata type, especially in the fall and winter. As I mentioned in my last video and probably a couple of other videos, I am a Vata-Pitta type, so that Vata is my dominant dosha and Pitta is my secondary dosha, and of course I have some Kapha in me. In the fall, I modify my diet completely because I live in the mid-Atlantic region. Therefore, in the summer, it gets very hot and humid, and so I eat more a Pitta diet in the summertime. And as we transition into the fall, I eat more of a Vata type diet. Now let's go over the principles of an Ayurvedic diet just a little bit. So an Ayurvedic diet, you want to be eating all 6 tastes at every meal. So those tastes are sweet, sour, salty, bitter, pungent, and astringent. And if you want to learn more in detail, of course, you can go into my book, The Wheel of Healing with Ayurveda, and learn more about each of those categories. And that is a way you can look at that. You look at eating a little bit differently in Ayurvedic medicine than in Western medicine or in Western lifestyle. So we're going to look at this as a Vata type. In your Vata diet, you're going to eat more of the sweet, sour, and salty tastes, and you are going to eat less of the bitter, pungent, and astringent tastes. So sweet, sour, and salty, it sounds like, okay, I get to eat a bunch of sweet things and salty and chips and everything. Well, that's not exactly what that is. The sweet taste is comprised of a lot of your macronutrients, your carbohydrates, your proteins, and your fats. So those are the macronutrients. And so, for example, grains are sweet, oils are sweet, butter and dairy products are sweet, and so are sweet fruits, and so is sugar and processed foods and all those other things that you're not really supposed to eat a whole lot of, if any at all. And the salty taste, of course, is pretty much found everywhere. It's really hard to not find salt. It's easier actually to find salt than not find salt. I found this out when I had to be on an iodine-free diet during the time that I was receiving radioactive iodine therapy for thyroid cancer, and it was really hard. My diet was super restrictive at that time because almost everything has iodine in it, which comes from salt because salt is now iodide. The next taste that Vata types would increase would be the sour taste. You're looking at citrus fruits, you're looking at vinegars, you're looking at yogurts and things that are fermented, like fermented cheeses. So that would bring about the sour taste into your diet. Vata types then are supposed to eat less of the bitter, pungent, and astringent tastes. Now that doesn't mean that you don't eat bitter, pungent, and astringent. It just means that if you were to look at your plate would be filled up with a lot more sweet, sour, and salty tastes and less of the bitter, pungent, and astringent tastes. Now here's why. It's because Vata is a cold dosha. It's also a very dry dosha. So foods that are going to make you drier and draw the moisture out of your body are going to make you feel more uncomfortable. And the reason for that is that it draws out the moisture and you get drier, and then the Vata symptoms are exacerbated. That's why we want to eat a lot of fattier foods, but healthy fats. So we're looking at the healthy, fattier foods for the Vata type. We're not looking at shoving a bunch of hydrogenated oils into your body or fried foods. We're not looking at that. What we're focusing on are those healthy fats found in things like ghee or even organic butter, organic cheeses. We're looking at things like extra virgin organic olive oil, extra virgin coconut oil, things like that that are going to bring fat into your diet. Even milk. Milk is revered as a food of the gods in Ayurveda. And so I opt for organic grass-fed dairy. That is the kind of dairy that I consume. I really go to great lengths to try to find organic grass-fed food. And the reason for that is because I believe that it's friendlier to the cows and it's friendlier to my body. So whatever you consume the energy of that product, of that food product too. So it's not about just consuming food. It's about consuming the energy, the prana within that food. So it's super important that you stay aligned with foods that are friendlier to the environment, that are friendlier to the animals. If you're not a vegetarian, you do eat animal products, please opt for those that are non-GMO, organic, and that are friendly, cruelty-free products. And it's very easy. You can look at cruelty-free websites to find out which producers of animal products, meats, cheeses, things like that, are more cruelty-free. So you can really look that up, and that's the energy that you're going to be consuming. To get back to the Vata diet for fall. So what I do when I modify my diet for the fall and for the winter, so I don't go out of balance, because it's really easy for a Vata type in the fall to go out of balance, because think about it. The dosha is dry, it's drawing moisture out of your body, and it's cold. So dry and cold are those qualities of September, October, November, December. As it increases, as the weather starts to get cooler, as the air starts to blow around, as the leaves start to dry out on the trees and things start to fall off the trees. So, it's not only the leaves, but it's the acorns, and you see the grass turning brown. It no longer grows. It's not green anymore. So all of these things start to happen in the fall, and the moisture is drawn out of the air. Therefore, it's similar to the Vata. So you want to re-moisturize, if you will, or bring water and life back into your mind body in order to not have those exacerbated symptoms of Vata, which you know what it is. Like, you can have symptoms of dry skin, dry eyes. You might notice if you wear contacts, you have to lubricate your eyes a little bit more, have those wetting drops. If you drink too much coffee, you notice that you start to have things like dry mouth, or you have constipation. So you know the symptoms that can occur. You can get a lot more anxious maybe. You're feeling ungrounded. You're feeling more anxious in the fall and the winter. So doing things that will keep you grounded if you're a Vata type is really, really important to keeping you balanced, healthy, and whole. For breakfast, I always shift to a hot cereal or something warm. I try to stay away from cold cereals, which Vata types really shouldn't have any cold cereals just in general. You want that warming food or even room temperature food rather than cold food. And of course, Ayurveda never recommends having cold milk. Milk should always be warmed up on the stove, brought to a boiling point, and then cooled slightly, and then consumed at room temperature. You can consume hot milk or really warmed milk if you're a Vata type, or if you're a Kapha type. Kaphas should really focus on reducing dairy anyways. I picked out 2 cereals to show you, hot high fiber cereal and creamy wheat, which is by Bob's Red Mill. I got this at Mom's Organic Market, which is here on the East Coast. This is just like cream of wheat. I don't know if this one is organic. It doesn't have the organic label, but it was found at an organic store. So I'm not really sure. They might have certain standards that they know that they don't use pesticides and herbicides. And this one is organic by Bob's Red Mill too. And this is the high fiber hot cereal. It says with flaxseed. I'm a big fan of flaxseed, and I really, really enjoy this. Now, at first, the high fiber cereal tastes kind of like very thick, if you will. It tastes very weedy and fibery. There's a way you can make this less weedy and fibery if you're going to switch to hot cereal in the morning if you're a Vata type. So what I do with this, it calls for about 1/3 of a cup. What you can do is get both the creamy wheat hot cereal and the high fiber hot cereal and mix the two. So the recipe for one person calls for 1/3 of a cup of this. So you could even take half of that and add the regular white, more white creamy wheat cereal in order to work yourself up to the high fiber, because it can be a little shocking if you're not used to eating that much fiber at a sitting. It feels really filling, so it actually fills you up a little bit more, which is really another important point for a Vata type, is that Vatas tend to have digestion that works really quickly. You want to eat high fiber foods and foods that are going to be high in fat and maybe slow down that digestion just a little bit. You don't want to slow it down a lot, but just a little bit, and help alleviate as well that constipation that tends to run rampant in a Vata type or a Vata body. And I add, so it's about 1/3 of the hot cereal. For the hot cereal, I personally use coconut milk. So I use 1 cup of coconut milk, and I like mine a little more creamy rather than thick. I'm not a fan of oatmeal, and that's kind of one of those reasons. That's a texture thing. I do eat oatmeal, but I'm not a big fan, and I believe it's more about texture for me. So I like my hot cereal a little bit more runny. So I add a little bit of water to that. So I bring that to a boil. Now, Ayurvedic herbs for Vata, here's what I add. I add cinnamon, cloves, cardamom, and nutmeg to the coconut milk. I add probably maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon. You can add 1/8 of a teaspoon, 1/4 of a teaspoon of each of those. So I add that. I add a pinch of salt, so you have your salty. I add a pinch of salt to that. I let it boil. I pour in the hot cereal. Now for the high fiber cereal, you boil it for about 8 minutes, but on simmer. So you want it to simmer for about 8 minutes with the lid closed. Once the cereal's done, what I add to it is I add 1 tablespoon of maple syrup, only organic maple syrup, and I add about 1.5 teaspoons of butter. Now, ghee would work really well in this hot cereal, and ghee is a great food. It's very healing. If you don't know what ghee is clarified butter. I just happen to have butter on hand all the time, so I do use, again, organic butter in my hot cereal, and I eat that, and the tablespoon of maple syrup tends to sweeten it a little bit. Otherwise, the high fiber, it can be a little, like I said, it can be a little pasty. It's a little hard to digest. But with the maple syrup, it's perfect, and then putting in the spices, and those warming spices are really going to help you to balance out that Vata. Now, another thing really important about Vata is you want to make sure that you're eating your meals about the same time every day, and you want to add in a couple of snacks. So the timing of my meals kind of looks like this. Early in the morning, I have a mocha, and I've already discussed this in another video on my morning routine, but I do grass-fed milk. I usually do skim milk. It's just my preference. I do have a tendency after 40 to gain a little bit of weight. So I really try to measure everything out exactly. I try to do low-fat dairy when I can, just for the fact that my body tends to hold on to a little more fat. So I do about 1 cup or 3/4 cup of warmed milk. I put in my hot chocolate mix, which is usually an organic cocoa powder, adding a little bit of turbinado sugar. I do my espresso shot, add that, put a little whipped cream on it. That's my morning mocha. That holds me over a couple of hours in the morning. Then I do my hot cereal, probably a couple hours later. That's kind of like my mid-morning snack. And then I eat lunch around noon. So again, if you're a Vata type, you want to have those meals spaced out enough that you're consistently eating every 2 to 3 hours, or eating something. It doesn't mean you're eating a full meal necessarily, but you're eating something. Eating the hot cereal at noon. I do something usually warm. I'm not, again, in the fall and winter, I'm not big on doing salads. I used to force myself to do salads before. If I do salads, I'm doing more of a winter/fall type salad with a little more of those sweet, sour, and salty tastes to them. So I will do like a warmed goat cheese salad with crostini. I will do, one of my boyfriend's favorites is the endive salad. So I do endives with some crumbled blue cheese, with warmed walnuts, apple. So that's more of an earthy fall type salad with some vinaigrette that I make homemade with, olive oil, vinegar, mustard, salt and pepper. So those kinds of salads would be a more warming type salad. It's going to bring those sweet, sour, and salty tastes a little bit more elevated than if you're going to just take on a salad with a whole bunch of veggies. But typically what I'm doing are soups at lunchtime. So heartier soups. You want heartier soups with cream, with oil. You want those heartier soups, always adding fat to your diet if you're a Vata type. Adding some type of fat. It doesn't mean your food has to be swimming in fat, and it doesn't mean your food has to be fried, but we're talking about just adding some olive oil, adding some ghee, adding some organic butter, adding some coconut oil, something that's going to bring fat to your diet and keep that Vata moist. You don't want the dried out Vata. So things like rice cakes and sandwiches with just something dry in it, no, that just doesn't work to balance out a Vata type. So for example, I'll give you an example of what I ate today. I made some vegetarian tortilla soup. Before, when I was eating chicken, I used to add the organic chicken. Now what I added instead, I added about a half a cup of wheat berries, organic wheat berries. They're kind of like pearled couscous almost, but they're a little bit bigger. So I got them again at the organic market in the bulk section. I added olive oil to this. So even though tortilla soup is a little more brothy soup, I did add some olive oil. I put in jalapenos, onions, I put in tomatoes, corn, black beans, and then I add the toppings, which I do add some organic sour cream, some organic cheddar, some organic avocados on top. I add a little bit of the tortilla chips on top just to top the soup. But again, that's a heartier soup that's going to keep you full, and it's going to warm the body. Again, that warm soup, warming the Vata. And again, in that soup, you're getting all 6 tastes really easily. You're getting the sweet because oil is sweet. You're getting the sour because I have the sour cream and the cheese, and you're getting the salty because salt isn't everything. And then bitter, the bitter herbs you would get. I've got cilantro that I put in there. You get the bitter taste in any of the green vegetables usually. And then pungent would be the spices that I add. I add cumin. I add a little bit of cayenne pepper. I add salt and pepper, of course. I added some taco spices actually today. And then astringent would be the beans. So beans are astringent. So if you look at that, it's putting everything, and avocados are astringent as well. They're sweet and astringent. So adding those all together, you're getting all 6 tastes at the meal. Now at 4 o'clock, I usually do a snack. I do either a coffee. I do coffee. I told you that was one of my vices. I might do a piece of dark chocolate and maybe a yogurt, a Greek yogurt. I always do organic Greek yogurts. One of my favorite organic Greek yogurts is lemon organic Greek. And so I happen to like that. It's a little bit sweet, but not too sweet. And you get the protein, the high protein of the organic Greek, which tends to be a little bit higher in protein than traditional yogurts. But then you're getting the sweet, sour, and salty tastes in that Greek yogurt. For dinner, it really varies, but again, warming. Everything is about warming the body, warming the Vata. Now, I am a big fan of veggies. Veggies are typically bitter and astringent, which of course in a Vata diet you need less of and more of the other stuff when you're trying to balance Vata. You can make vegetables more Vata friendly if you lightly saute them in olive oil, ghee, butter, coconut oil, sesame oil even. Sesame oil is great. Sometimes I'll do like a little stir fry. But if you lightly saute them in the oils, it makes them more Vata friendly. It makes them less apt to bring the moisture out of your body. So I like to do sometimes asparagus and broccoli and green beans, and I take all of that, maybe some zucchini. I take that, I do like a whole wheat pasta, and I add in some maybe olive tapenade and some olive oil on top of that. So as you can see, it's just integrating all the 6 tastes, bringing them all together. But the warmness, oiliness, moisture is really important in your food, and making sure that you're eating consistently on target at designated hours in the day, and that you're not skipping meals. When you're a Vata type, it's really important that you don't skip meals, that you keep that body fueled up, because our energy rises and falls really, really quickly. And of course, if you're a Vata type, you know that you have that burst of energy and you deplete the energy completely, and then you have the crash and burn. In order to not experience that crash and burn, it's really important that you be consistent in your eating patterns. So I hope you've learned a little bit more about eating for a Vata type, especially in the fall and winter. Thanks so much for joining me. Please subscribe to my channel, share this video with friends, family, and your dog, and support me on Patreon. I don't get paid for doing these videos. You can buy a book, support me on Patreon. Patreon's a great website. You could donate $1 a month, $3 a month, or $5 a month. 10. It just depends on what you believe you're getting out of these videos and what the value is added to your life. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.